guest on our program for
Very
tonight.
good, very good. Okay, hopefully you're hearing us, Eric Schwartz, who is in California right now. It's very nice there, by the way, just to let you know he's in Southern Cal. Or no, you're in Northern Cal, in the Silicon Valley, actually, and he is the head honcho, from my perspective, of Elecraft Radio. He's also a pilot. For those of you that might be a pilot, he flew in last summer into EAA and joined us here in Wisconsin to look into EAA. So we had a nice conversation about that. And so he can tell you about the radio itself. But Elecraft has had a lot of notoriety since its onset coming to the market, and again as a kit. And he'll tell you more about that. But they keep adding to the line. And the specs on this radio, as all of you that know have been around a long time, are phenomenal. This is a phenomenal radio that gets high marks all across the board. So I'm going to turn it over to Eric, and he's going to tell you about Elecraft. And by the end of the meeting, I think we agreed that maybe everybody's going to want to rush out and buy one, probably, right, Eric? Go ahead.
And we don't have any audio.
Oh, where's your audio? Hold on a second, Eric. Lost your audio for some reason. It was there. Okay, I hope I didn't mute anything here. I don't think I did, though. So hang on a second.
No, that's my fault. I think I muted
There,
you.
you muted yourself. Okay. What the heck? Okay, we're good now. Go for it.
I didn't want to have feedback with you there while I was going. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, feel free to stop me, Stan, if you need to adjust anything or make it louder.
Correct.
I couldn't hear everything as you guys are introducing. Can you give me the name of the radio club again and what town are you guys located in?
Okay, this is Fond du Lac, Wisconsin Amateur Radio Club. Fond du Lac's about, 65 miles north of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. What's our grid square? It's about 50...
EN53SS.
Yep. What is it?
EN53SS.
Okay, EN53SS is our grid square, so you can kind of grid square us out there, Eric. But yeah, we're in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. It's in southeastern Wisconsin. And we got a whole crowd of people here all the way down from Milwaukee and around too. They came up for the meeting tonight to hear about Elecraft. So we got quite a crowd here, so you're speaking to the multitudes tonight.
Fantastic, Stan. And actually, I do know where Fond du Lac is because that's one of the alternate airports for EAA when we were flying in there this last summer. It's my first time up to Oshkosh and EAA, and I was in heaven. It's like going to Dayton for ham radio, so I had a lot of fun. My wife and I are both pilots. So we flew our Cessna all the way across the country and had a blast there. It was a great time. Can you guys hear this? Again, you guys, am I loud enough for everybody? Can you hear me okay in back?
Sure. Yeah. Good. Got you turned up way high.
Move the mobile.
Well, I'll try to make sure I'm talking loud enough too. If you need to adjust anything, just tell me and I'll pause and go on. Welcome from somewhat sunny Northern California. We just finished getting some rain for the last 3 days, but the sun's, I look out the window, yep, the sun just went down and we still have a few clouds, but I think we're going to have a respite for a few days, but not quite as cool, I think, as you guys probably have in your neck of the woods. But we're not like Southern California where it's sunny and warm all the time, it seems. We get a little cooler up here. We're about 45 minutes outside of Silicon Valley on the California coast on Monterey Bay, for those of you that are familiar with the area here, about 60 miles south of San Francisco. What I'd like to talk about is just a little bit about our history and, of course, the products along the way here, too. And since usually when I give these talks in person, I let folks interrupt and stuff. If you guys want, Stan, if people have a question or something, just alert me and I'll answer it as I go through here if I'm not clear on anything. We'll also have some questions at the end there, too. Just real quick, just so I know time-wise, what do we got here for time in terms before everybody falls asleep on me?
Well, we've got probably what,
Figure about top of the hour.
Top of the hour, so you probably got almost an hour, 50 minutes
About
at
50.
least, somewhere around 50 minutes.
About 50. If we
50.
run over a little bit, we run over a little bit.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Just keep chugging.
I'll try to keep it within that. You know, if any questions might go over, that's up to you guys still. But great. What I'd like to talk about is I titled this Wayne and Eric's Excellent Adventure. It's a takeoff on a movie theme called Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure from way back when, but quite a different trend in this case. This is about two guys, Wayne Burdick, my business partner, and myself, starting a ham radio company that seemed rather crazy at the time back in 1997, 98 when we first started thinking about it. But Along the way, we managed to re-energize our interest in ham radio, and we somehow started a successful company. We're still here 17 years later. It's our 17th year. I sort of putting the slide together here. I looked at that. I go, wow, we've been shipping radios for a while here. So it's grown quite a bit. So I'll give you a little ride along with us here, show you what we did and how we started, and then also where we are now and all the neat goodies we've got along the way. So who are we? Did the second slide come up okay, Stan?
Yeah, it did. Looks good.
There's a little bit of a delay here, so I have to pause after I click on these. So who are we? Wayne and I are both actually very close in age. I just turned 58 this year. We were both hams since 1971, and coincidentally we're licensed. We didn't know each other at the time, but we were licensed within months of each other. His first call was WN6HQH, and he's really been into rig design his whole life. He started designing QRP rigs while he was in high school, and for those of you who are familiar with some of the NorCal QRP Club and other radios out there from Wilderness Radio, Wayne designed the NorCal 40, the Sierra, the SST, a number of radios that were club radios that some of the clubs did out here. He's got a Bachelor of Science in Cognitive Science, of all things, from the University of California, San Diego. Sort of combination of user interface, psychology, and software design. But he's been a Silicon Valley guy his whole life, since he's been out here designing hardware and software in Silicon Valley. Most recently, before we started this company, he was at a company that was a think tank started by Paul Allen of Microsoft that called Interval Research. And they were coming up with big ideas for the next great thing. And he said it was like getting paid to be in grad school for 8 years. And somehow we went crazy and talked him into leaving that when we started this company. So you can see the similarity in calls. My call was WN6HHQ, so we had HQH and HHQ. That's, someone said California Karma, I guess, if we all had longer hair out here. But anyway, that was my first call at that time. So we got our licenses very close to each other, and I guess that was sort of heading us towards this direction of meeting each other many years later. He was down in San Diego. I was up in Northern California, near Berkeley, Oakland, and San Francisco. My background's in instrumentation design. I'm a double E and did hardware, software, and firmware design in Silicon Valley. Got my Bachelor of Science back east. I'd never been east of Montana, so it was quite a shock. Kid from California going back there to school between the snow and different culture out there. It was a good education and enjoyed it a lot. I came back to Silicon Valley and got involved in quite a few companies there. I actually wanted to be involved in some startups when I first came out of school in 1979. So I got involved in a company called the Millennium Systems, designing instrumentation. And then a few other companies in between. I then became head of engineering for a company called Mountain Computer, which was a PC peripherals company. Joined them, I think, in 1982. And then when we sold that, I started a company called Verisys that makes SCSI SCSI protocol analyzers for the computer bus. I became the leading company in that industry. And then I went crazy and I sold that business and started a ham radio business called Elecraft with Wayne. So my background's both in electronic design and also in business management. And it worked out real well, and Wayne and I were both bumping into each other, that we had complementary skills there. We had a lot of overlap, but also we could each focus on different areas until we could build a company together. Am I still coming through okay? Can you guys hear me?
Sound great. Sound great. Everybody? Good?
Yeah.
They all nodded yes.
Okay.
Said yes.
Also, if I haven't had too much coffee today, fortunately for you. I can talk pretty fast, so I'll try to slow myself down as much as possible, but don't be afraid, Stan, to say slow down a bit if I start getting too fast here.
Okay.
This is a picture, this was actually 1998 field day. Wayne and I had the first couple of K2 radios, which I'll talk about, but that was our first kit radio. We make, one thing I'd like to clarify, probably half the product we make today is factory assembled and aligned here. We sell both kits and fully assembled radios, but the first radio, the K2, is like the old Beef kits where you can solder everything in place. And we had a couple of these at field day, and another group that was just one hill over from us that couldn't figure out how we could scoot up right next to their signals and not get interference from them. Had to go over and see what we had, and they were checking out our radios. They took this cell phone picture, obviously low resolution, but of us back then. So you can see us back, actually when Wayne had more hair, I had about the same amount, but that was taking apart K2s and showing them how we could align them on a picnic table and get them on the air, which is sort of neat. This is a couple of Wayne's earlier designs. on the left here, this is the NorCal 40, and I'll talk about that a bit, because that's actually what I got playing around with that introduced me to Wayne. He designed this for the NorCal QRP Club back in the mid-90s. Then he designed the Sierra. I actually helped him design some of that. That was a multi-band radio, and then the SST, super simple transceiver. These are all CW rigs. And those are still out there. I think sold by Wilderness Radio. It's a friend of ours that picked those up after Wayne designed. This is before Elecraft got started. So, 44 years going on today of ham radio. Back, I mentioned in 71 when I was 14, I got my first novice license. It's WN6HHQ. And I got immediately into building. I saved up my paper route money and whatever else I could scrounge stuff to build things. So I built a Heathkit HW16. Anybody built those in the room?
Anybody with HW16? No hands. I don't see anybody. No. I don't think so.
HW101 Heathkits.
101. There's at least one hand for the 101.
Yep, built one.
Doug built the
Yeah.
101.
Join my age, but no, they were a lot of fun. That was a classic kit company, solder everything in. Back in the days of advanced thermionic devices, mostly tubes, a few transistors. I moved on as I went through high school and college. Bigger radios, amplifiers, built a lot of amps and big antenna systems. Also built a lot of repeaters and controllers on my own design for the controllers, actually from high school on. I still do that today. That's a lot of fun also for linking things together. Do a lot of that. Even did a lot of satellite work and chased quite a bit of DX. And actually, that was one of the things I had a blast with when I first started playing these little QRP rigs after this because I could actually chase DX on those too and be fairly successful. By the mid-90s, though, I felt I was getting a little stale. I was busy running Verisys, my analyzer company, and wasn't doing enough design work and wasn't having enough time to get on the air all that much. And so I was looking for something different to do. And in 1994, I went to a local ham fest here in Monterey. That's where Pebble Beach is held for golfers out there. And there's a little ham club down there that holds a regional ham fest each year. And the NorCal QRP Club had a booth, and I picked up this little NorCal 40 QRP, 40 meter 5-watt radio kit. Had a blast building it and modifying it, adding all sorts of features to it. S meter I built into it. Able to go split with it. It was pretty much a simplex radio the way it was out of the box. I had a lot of fun getting back into redesigning things and fixing them up there. And I actually started going to these local club meetings up in Silicon Valley. About 60 people would meet every month at a local burger restaurant, the California Burger near Livermore, a big ham radio spot here. And Wayne was there, and he and I hit it off, and he and his future wife and my future wife and I got together a few times out here where we lived near the coast on the beach. And over the years, we operated field day together. We brainstormed products, late night field day. I'm sure you guys have done that yourselves, saying you'd rather have a better radio when you're operating portable like that. Back in 95 and 6, we actually started seriously talking about doing a radio that maybe could be sold, though we really hadn't gelled into a company idea in 1997. This was the sort of gestation of our first radio, the K2, which we'll talk about here in a second. So then we get up in 1997, we actually did an introduction of a little slideshow at the Civicon, the ARRL West Coast Convention, of what we thought Elecraft might be and the K2 might be, which was quite a blast. It's a little different than what we ended up with, but people thought we were crazy to talk about starting a ham radio company. How do you make money doing that? But we kept persevering and actually got that product out, and we'll tell you a little about it here next. That next slide, pick it up.
Yep, go ahead.
K2. Great. So this is a concept drawing of K2. Are there any K2 owners in the room? Anybody that's built those radios?
K2, anybody? No, don't see anybody. Nope.
That was our first transceiver. I think there's 8,000, almost 9,000 of them out there now. This was the first artist rendition. We never built one at this point. This is just Wayne playing around with the graphics program of what he thought it would look like. You'll see some similarity when we get to the actual picture of it. This is a side view. We originally thought we were going to design it plug-in vertical cards. A couple problems with this design. I'm glad we didn't build it this way. If you drop the radio and you've got a 12-volt, 3-amp-hour gel cell inside, you can imagine what that might do to the circuit board underneath it. So we redesigned that with an internal battery and mounted it to the top of the radio before we actually burned anything up. And we actually ended up putting most of the circuitry on a main RF board with very small horizontal boards plugging into it. So we didn't really use the card cage approach to it. Here's a dangerous picture of shady guys in Silicon Valley in 1998. This is Yeah, it looks like a drug deal, I think. This is myself and Wayne in the parking lot, the very first circuit boards that we had fabbed before we stuffed them near a Silicon Valley restaurant called The Gooder. You can see the sign in the upper left-hand corner over here. And that's actually a pretty, it's not there anymore. It was near where Apple was founded, and a lot of Silicon Valley ideas got started in that restaurant because it's an interesting place. So, but we were getting the first boards there, and we were going to see if they work. Wayne is still working at his company. I still haven't sold my company. We're just kicking that around. And so we were going to build the first thing and see if it worked. So here's the first K2 prototype. So you're starting to see it come. This is 1998. And we had basically a main RF board you can sort of see in the back here. Does this cursor show up okay for you guys?
Yes.
Okay. So we have this main RF board in the back here that has all the transmit-receive circuitry on it. This little board here, the behind the front panel, has the microprocessor on it, control circuitry and audio amplifiers, things like that. And then the main front panel board was all the push buttons, LCD display, VFO, encoder, things like that. One unique thing about our designs, it actually follows through from Wayne's earlier designs, is for those of you who built Heath-kits or other kits, there's a lot of point-to-point wiring sometimes. And we pioneered actually making everything plug into each other. We eliminated a lot of wiring harnesses and complexity in areas where you could make mistakes. And so this was the first attempt at it. This actually was a working radio. It was our first little prototype of it. And here we are demonstrating it back in '98 at the North California Burger. You can see it right there in Livermore, just outside of Silicon Valley. And you've got, of course, a number of guys. I don't know if you guys know Chuck Adams, K7QO, I think it's called now. Very fast CW off, a number of other guys here. But this was the first, the silver box was the first unpainted version of that K2 radio kit. And we had it on top of the hood of my car, and we're working people from the parking lot. And then January of '99, we got the design done. I had gone full-time actually in the middle of that last summer there around June, July, August. And Wayne actually went full-time right about the time of this picture at the end of January, and convinced him to quit his job. And we piled the first 100 kits, these are all soldered together kits, to our 100 field testers. This was an interesting concept. We actually sold them the radios, gave them a 10% discount to be the first guys to get them. And then they helped us debug anything that we missed in the design. But they also turned out to be a great marketing push for us, because we had 100 evangelists for the product by the time we were done with this. And we sort of stumbled into that by luck and good fortune, and it turned out to be a good avenue for us to get the word out. So that was us piling into the back of my car and taking it to the post office. I showed up with these 100 boxes at the post office that we had actually put all the parts in down the basement of my house. That's my tower in the background here on this picture. And I showed up at the post office and I go, "What are all these?" And I said, "These are ham radios." And they sort of quizzically look at us and they say, "Okay, that's nice. Well, I hope we see you again someday." And I said, "We'll be back soon, I hope." They had no idea what we were going to hit them with afterwards. This was the first batch. Here's the K2. You can skip that first drawing. Here's what it ended up looking like. The first version was a QRP radio, 10 watts, but you can see this version has a large heat sink on the top. We followed up with, again, we were just 2 guys in our basement. So we didn't have the time to design everything up front. So we built it and sold it incrementally. We first had the basic CW radio. We added a sideband option to it. We added 160 meters. We added an advanced noise blanker. Then we added this 100-watt top cover. So people could buy it as a 100-watt radio or build it incrementally. I actually subsequently coined that as my spousal theory of marketing, because you could sort of get the basic radio as an agreed-to present or something like that, and negotiate that, and then sneak the options in under the radar on your credit card each month. That actually works out. I haven't patented that, I haven't copyrighted that phrase yet, but it does work. That's the K2, and we've got, I think, close to 9,000, 8 or 9,000, I know over 8,000 of these out there now. And what was really cool about this is we pushed the performance envelope on this to where it was one of the top 5 or 6 performing radios in the market. We actually had some of the best dynamic range, even as a kit, of any built radio when this came out. We sort of surprised the ARRL when I went back to have the radio tested the first time. We did a pre-test with them, and they were sort of, very formal and everything. But as we got test results in from the lab, as each one came in, they smiled more and more. Surprised them quite a bit the performance of this radio. This actually became a favorite of a lot of the expeditions. There's a lot of guys that have taken these out because they're so small, and they're very high performance radios, both CW and Psychic. We followed these up in 2000, a couple of QRP radios, and Wayne wanted to do these. This is with K1. It only drew about, I forget how much. It was about 40 milliamps, I think, on receive. You could actually power it with this 9-volt battery on receive. I wouldn't transmit very long with it. And we still sell this today, actually. It's a nice little CW radio. The KX1 was designed as a trail, we call trail-friendly radio. This was in 2004. This has, again, CW had an option for a built-in paddle and a DDS-based VFO. And this one you can take anywhere on the trail, and came standard with 40 and 20 meters, and then we added a 30-meter option to it, an 80-meter option to it. So you could have a 4-band radio in your pocket, which was sort of cool. It's like a little spy radio. I think there's like 3,000 or 4,000 of these out there now, too. But the real radio came along, and the one probably most of you have heard of is in 2007, we shipped our first K3. We actually introduced it, I think, a date in 2006. And we're swamped with orders for it. We were very clear. We said we're not going to ship it for about another 6 months. But I think we shipped them in October of 2007. But so date of 2007 to October is the time frame between when we introduced and actually shipped it. What was really nice about this is we actually asked folks if they wanted to, they could pay us up front on a refundable deposit for the first 200 orders. And we were shocked. We had that fully subscribed in the first couple of weeks. To help fund our startup by a long shot. At this time, I think we had about 8 people in the company when we introduced the K3, so it was quite a growth spurt for us from where we are today. K3, we had to outdo how we did on the K2 because we had such a good reputation from the K2, so that was quite a bit of work for us, and so we did quite a bit of DSP work. It's really an SDR inside, software-defined radio, with a hybrid front end that gets very high performance with high-performance crystal filters, noise blanker, but also very quiet synthesizer, which lets you both not bother your neighbors when you're on transmitting, but also on receive, not have them pump your receiver as much also. So it makes a big difference. It's an area we've really worked hard on is having very high-performance receivers, both dynamic range and phase noise. And you can tell the K3 is a little more polished than the K2 was also. It's come a long way. So this is the first radio we offered, both built and kit. As I mentioned, I think a little over half of these go out fully factory assembled these days. That's evolved into the complete K line, we call it now. We were at Collins had the S line, so we sort of piggybacked on that nomenclature for the K line. So you have the K3, and then we have the P3 PAN adapter. This is a full software-defined digital signal processing spectral display. And it shows on this little blue screen here up to 200 kilohertz of spectrum, or you can narrow it down to 2 kilohertz. You can show both a spectrum analyzer display the signals on each side of you. And then down below here is a history that serves a waterfall that goes down with time for each time it scans, so you can see the last 30 or 40 seconds, which is great when you're looking at a pilot and you're trying to say, okay, when he stopped, who was the last guy you talked to? You can actually move cursors on the screen and click on that and have that move your transmit frequency if you're running split over to that frequency and jump the radio around. It's sort of neat. And it's also the most sensitive PAN adapter out there. Most of the ones that were built in radios at the time we introduced this did not really go all the way to the noise floor of the radio. They're maybe 10 dB or so above the floor is the weakest signal they'd show. And the P3 goes all the way down to the noise floor of the K3. So it's a favorite both for weak signal guys, DXpeditions, and of course NDXers and guys at home doing it too. And also the VHF, UHF guys. The K3 also has a big transverter interface, so guys are using it for an IF on microwaves also. And it's become sort of the standard for that. And then we introduced also, I think right around 2012, 2011, the KPA 500 amplifier on the right. This is a solid state pin diode switch, totally silent transreceive. Smart amplifier has a built-in frequency counter. Works with other radios too, not just the K3. It'll automatically switch bands as soon as you transmit, just based on your frequency. It'll measure the switch and silently be on that band. And also the cable to the K3 and other radios, you can tell what band it's on ahead of time. But it's very quiet, fully self-contained, same size as the K3. And averages about 600 watts out on most bands that we spec it at 5. And it covers 160 through 6 meters. That's a cool deal. It goes all the way up. As you'll see in a little bit here, that's also become a favorite of DXpeditions. The K3 over here weighs about 8 or 9 pounds fully loaded. That's with all the filters, sub-receiver, everything you can put into it. So that's a very nice, powerful, but not super heavy DXpedition radio. And it's not tiny. It's quite a bit bigger than the K2. And of course, with the P3, you're actually larger than a lot of other radios horizontally. It's probably, I think, a little bit wider than like a 56 Pro 3 in that range stuff. But it's nice having that nice compact station. And we've sold thousands of these. I think we're getting close to, I think, 9,000 K3s now out there. So it's done quite well. And it's actually came out as the top receiver in the market when we introduced it. And it's still up there in the top 2 or 3. And of course, one of the other top 2 or 3 is one of our other radios that we'll show you here too in a minute. One neat thing we've done recently, by the way, is also remote operation of the radios. You can completely remote either in your house, like from your basement up to a room upstairs, or across the internet if you want. When I'm on the road, I carry a K30 Mini. That's this little guy on the left here. It's a shortened K3 panel. And I can run that with just a little netbook or a laptop computer. It does all the voice over internet. We have software that does everything self-contained. Even will spin your rotor around and do packet on this if you want to. But I basically have full real-time feedback and control of the radio no matter where I am. I use it a lot in my house. My station's down in the basement, and I'll have the K30 Mini, which I have on the table here, so you can sort of get a size of it here. That's what it looks like. I've got it turned off right now, but you can get a feel for the control panel. I have that sitting with me at the breakfast table sometimes listening for DX. I've worked quite a few DXpeditions that way while I'm eating breakfast. So I'll just have that going over the wireless network in the house to the radio downstairs. So we've done a lot of that. We're pretty much what's cool about it is you have 100% recreation of all the controls on the radio. So it feels real time, just like the radio. And you've got the audio coming out of it, everything. It's you get a Morse code key up to it, right? And it'll operate exactly just like you were sitting in front of the real radio. So it's a nice experience. And actually, for some of us that can't get antennas up anymore because you're in controlled communities or condos or retirement areas, this is a great way to get back on the air with friends that might have a club station, things like that.
Awesome.
Stan,
Yeah,
Question.
Yeah, real time.
Question,
Go ahead,
yes.
question.
Buddy?
this is just the IT guy in me wondering, does it require a Wi-Fi network, or can you, will it work over 3G, 4G?
Okay,
Or is it
did you hear the question?
I got it. And actually, it'll work both ways. The control head itself is agnostic. It provides basically a USB interface to a laptop computer or a direct connection out the back to these little boxes here that are called remote rigs. Those, if you don't want to have computers at each end, these are sort of embedded computers, and we sell these. They do the voice over internet and the control. They have an Ethernet jack on the back of them. And then you plug in a cable from us, from the control head into them, and also into the radio at the remote end. In the case of using a laptop computer or a personal computer, we have a USB output on the K30 Mini on the side here. You can sort of see a little square thing. That has audio and control, and will go right into the USB slot on your laptop computer, PC. We have a Windows program that actually does all the voice over internet control, all the end-to-end stuff. You have to have a computer at each end. I have a little netbook at the far end that just sits on top of my K3, and I have that basically talking over my Wi-Fi network in my house to wherever I happen to be at the other end with the K30 Mini talking into that laptop. That laptop could be talking into Wi-Fi, it could be talking into, of course, hardwired into Ethernet, and 4G or 3G. I was just in Puerto Rico for the ARRL Puerto Rico convention a couple of weeks ago. They only had 3G there. They didn't have any internet really working for a while inside actually the big gymnasium that we were in. And so I tried it on 3G, and I was controlling my station and working people in California over 3G. I basically took an iPhone, Apple iPhone, which is on 3G, created a Wi-Fi hotspot with that, going to my laptop computer, which was then plugged into the control head, the K30 Mini, and I was able to control it. I don't recommend 3G because it's probably right on the edge of having the performance you need. 4G, it works great. I've run dual stations over 4G at Visalia DX convention, and we were demoing both methods of using these remote rig boxes like you have here, and also the laptop method. And both of those are running full-time, controlling two different stations over in that case it was my iPad as a hotspot, but it was doing 4G to Wi-Fi and then Wi-Fi to these guys. And so you really have any method you want. Basically any internet connection will take care of it. Does that sort of answer the question?
I think so.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, we've had, I don't recommend doing this. This is worse than texting and driving, but I've actually had people create a 4G hotspot in their car and have the K30 Mini mounted as their mobile radio, and they're controlling their station at home while they're driving down the highway. And they'll be working a station, and they'll say, hold on a second, let me turn my antenna. but they also sign mobile, which really confuses the guy on the other end. This is another way to have fun, I guess. But it's just another thing. You don't have to do this, but it's a neat way to operate. Actually, the ARRL and CQ magazine have actually created, I believe, in the case of CQ, different contest categories now and DXing categories for the remote stations. I know CQ is doing that. I think ARRL is doing it too. So there's it's sort of another way to get on the air and have fun. So last radio we brought out. This is a KX3. And grab one across the room here. It says, honey, I shrunk the K3. So that's the whole radio there. And I don't think I have batteries in this one, do I? No, I don't. But it has internal batteries, 8 AA cells. And this guy is got one of the top performing receivers out there. It has the same display as the K3 you can see from the picture on the screen. And it's got option for a built-in paddle. I don't have it plugged in on this one. You can plug in your own CW paddle on the side or straight key, of course, microphone. We also make a 100-watt amp. Was there a question there?
No.
Okay. We also make a 100-watt amplifier for it to get you up to 400 watts. And I'm going to turn this down from here myself. It's actually been incredibly popular. We've had this in the market since the very latter part of 2011. I think it shipped 5,000 or 6,000 the first 12 months. I think it's getting close to 19,000 now. It's become a great little radio because of its great receiver performance. It's right up there next to the K3, the other top radios, and you take it with you, either as a portable radio, run it off 13.8 volts in your car or battery, or use the internal batteries. It's become the go-to radio for the guys doing science on the air, SOTA, if you're familiar with those. It's like IOTA islands on the air, but those guys throw this in the knapsack or the back seat of their car and drive to a high location and operate that just like it's a rare country. But this has become extremely popular. You just pick it up and go. It works so well. It's a blast to operate. I take it with me everywhere. Just to give you a feel here, here's some guys familiar with the Sherwood Engineering's receiver test data?
Yeah.
Or some people, yeah. He runs parallel tests to what ARRL do. They tend to correlate each other quite nicely. And you'll notice in the top 3 radios, this is back from about a year and a half ago. We have the LCRAP KX3 and the K3, all with excellent performance specs. By the way, he ranks it just based on this one specification, narrow space dynamic range of 2 kilohertz. And that's a very difficult number to do well. And we just do extremely well with that. And actually, all the radios that are in this top category within about 3 dB of each other are all great receivers in this one specification. You can actually make this measurement and have it vary a dB or 2, one week to the next, depending on how you set things up. So,
Hey, Stan,
plus or minus a couple of dB. They're all
Stan,
about the same.
can you
At this spec.
make the
What's
slide a little larger?
interesting about the radio is the other
Just drag the split bar in the middle.
dynamic range, it's pretty much a measurement of intermod. If you've operated on 2 meters in a big city and had interference from the big stations, things like that, that's intermod when it comes through other channels you're listening. Same thing on HF, when you have 2 stations nearby, they'll overload the front end of the radio. They're not the same frequency as you, but it'll generate products on your frequency. And that's the test we do here is to measure how strong it has to be to generate that interference. So the bigger numbers are better here. The other key number, though, is blocking dynamic range over here, and that's descent. If you've ever had a guy pull up next to you while you're talking on the same repeater and your receiver went dead, that was descent overload of your receiver. And our radios are incredibly good in that area. 140 dB on the K3, 138 dB. That means that the signal has to be interfering with this, connecting 2 kilohertz away at this point, 400 kilohertz. It has to be at least 138 to 140 dB above the noise floor to cause any issue at all with the station you're trying to listen to, which is a much bigger number than most guys. If you look down the list, you'll see it rapidly drop down to 120s, so we've got a huge advantage over our competition there. It's not bad having a small radio in our flagship main desktop radio being that category. So some other things, we'll switch gears a little bit and talk about startup ingredients and really how we get there. I got this line a lot from people. You're starting a ham radio company, are you crazy? I think my parents told me that too, but they were used to me by that time. So a couple things you got to do, and those of you that do startups probably understand a lot. First of all, prepare to work hard. Sleep, what's that? You just sleep when you have time. And really, it's not a 5-day-a-week job either. It's whatever it takes to get out the door. The next line, though, is the most important. I'm sure you've seen a lot of guys in the ham radio business that have taken a neat design idea and sort of started it as a hobby sideline. And that's fine if you're just doing it that way. If you're trying to support yourself on it, you can't treat it as a hobby anymore. It really is a business. And you really have to focus on it that. Not in it, we enjoy doing what we're doing, but we're also in it as business people because we want to survive. We want to grow the business and hire people so we don't work ourselves into the ground. Because if you underprice your product, a lot of times what will happen is you start shipping a lot of them, and all of a sudden you don't have money to build the next batch. I've seen a lot of ham radio products disappear that. We want to be here for the long run, be able to hire good tech support people, be able to build a good engineering team, and keep coming out with stuff. You know, much past what we and I could design. We've got a team like that now. It's quite a bit. Plan to be profitable from the start. We're not one of these get a bunch of venture capital, rush out, lose money for 5 years, hope we make money after that. We actually made money our first year, and we were actually cash flow positive the first year. We put some seed money in from our pockets with no outside money, and we actually built the whole company with no outside funding, no bank loans, no venture capital. So pretty much it's fully owned by me and myself still. And it's continued to grow. We basically own all our inventory and have a good bit of cash balance so we can keep growing, which is really important. Cash flow, we keep that over as a mantra every day because if you don't keep your cash coming in, even if you're profitable, if people haven't paid you yet for the radios you're selling, you can be out of business real fast. So we do that a lot. Great employees is really important. And as far as things I did was hire some great people back when we were just a couple of people in a small office. They're still with us. And we've got a great team here who really cares about the product, cares about our customers. That's something, by the way, that's really important is caring about customers. I mentioned that down below here in a second. We also hire people where we can find them. We've got engineers up and down the West Coast from Washington State down to Arizona. Lyle Johnson, AK-7P does all our DSP work. And Lyle's full-time for us. He was the co-founder of Tucson Amateur Packet Radio Taper, designed the original Heathkit TNC modem back about 25, 50 years ago. And he's done a great job signing off our digital signal processors. He's down in Tucson now. He wasn't in Washington. And lastly, turn our customers into product evangelists. Those first 100 K2 field testers were great. They went out and told their friends. But I think when you build something, it has to work better, right? So they did a great job telling folks about it. Really, to this day, we have customers who go to Ham Radio Hamfest that set up booths, so pay the $20 or $30 for the booth for them, and they'll set an enthusiast booth talking about our products and bringing their own stuff there. So that's a great thing for us. Here's some of the first field testers we've never seen. This is back, I think, in year 2000 in Fort Tucker, Arizona. We'd never seen this many K2s built. We were sort of in shock. All these guys apparently brought them there and then got us into a picture with it. So as they all built these things to put them on the air, which is sort of cool. So final startup ingredients. We use the internet for viral marketing. We introduced the K3, by the way. First we started K2. We just had a website and an order page, and we used that to get the word out. We had manuals up there. We didn't go through ham radio stores. We wanted to be in direct contact with our customers. This day, we sell direct everywhere in the world. And then we methodically built the product line slowly but surely, and built obviously a high-quality product too. And we listened to our customers along the way. We made a lot of changes to the product. The K3, for instance, has a lot of features that the customers suggested. And we have downloadable firmware for the K3. We're one of the first companies to do that. So we actually can change it on the fly, so we've added new features or enhancements people have asked for over the years. One key thing is keep the customer happy no matter what. If you've got a bad radio, or you think you have a bad radio, or a missing part, we're going to do whatever it takes to make you happy even if we lose money. Fortunately, on a lot of those, when it happens, we take care of it. We'll basically trust the customer to be honest with it. It really helps us out in the long run. We want to keep you guys happy. Word gets out, if we don't treat you guys well, we're not going to do well in the market at all. We bring products out quickly in the sense that we build it, we design it, test it, fix it, adapt it to the market, and keep changing that. So the K3 that we sell today is very evolved from when we started with, 7, 8 years ago. It's really gotten more advanced. We keep improving the circuitry. We've added more firmware, added new features, got noise blanker, noise reduction, all sorts of advanced stuff we've added to it. So it's come a long way down. Obviously, adapt new technologies. So the SDR revolution is coming to play, but we also make sure we don't give up our focus on high performance along the way. And then we're working in hardware after. Here's where we are today. So we've grown to a company that That's our headquarters, right? My office is in right about where that red car is there in the window there. We've got about 50 to 55 employees now at the main factory and also our engineering team. And then we've got outside subcontractors, all built here in the U.S. The radios are designed and built in the United States. And my subcontractors that make my circuit boards are in Monterey, just about half an hour south of us. In the research park there with the automated assembly stuff for the surface mounting and through hole. We have a purchasing outfit that buys a lot of parts for us over in Silicon Valley. I've got a number of additional outside folks that help us with everything from ad design to, of course, circuit design. We have engineers all over the place. But the core group here in Aptos and then in Watsonville, we moved down the road from our original tent. As we ran out of space, we outgrew there. They didn't have any buildings big enough for us. So now we're building this stuff in here for the last, I think, 6 years or so. So moving over to a little different thing, crazy customers. We're crazy guys to start a ham radio company. These are our crazy customers. This guy, WA2EUJ, called me up and said, I want to buy a K2. I'm going to the South Pole McMurdo station in a week. And this was back in when I was about 5 people in a small office, probably around 2000. And I said, are you crazy? And he goes, no, I'll get it worked. I was really worried about building it that quickly and getting it going. But he was on the air a couple weeks later and sent me this card afterwards. And he was definitely an official Elecraft Kool-Aid. He believed in it and had a lot of fun. I don't think you should do this. I'm a pilot. This guy, been from Reno, Nevada to Silicon Valley, a high-tech, actually, medical field firm. And he had a K1 transceiver on CW, bungee cord to the top of his Cessna 180, 185, or which model that was. And he would be on the air working people while he was flying across the Central Valley of California. So that's probably in the distracted flying category, but he had a lot of fun doing it. He's still here. So we actually have guys that skydive with radios too. We had a fellow Velcro K1 to his chest. And when we first heard about it, when we got this smashed K1 stent into us for repair, he asked him what happened. And he says, well, I pulled the ripcord and G-forces pulled it off my chest and it fell another couple of thousand feet. So when I found it, it was still working. The panel was smashed in, the batteries were still inside and it was still talking. And sort of like that old Timex commercial takes we fixed it for him and sent it back. I think he got it tied a little tighter now, but he let out a drogue chute 20 meters behind him with a wire, and he'd work people in free fall. Hope he wouldn't get too excited and work a pilot or something. Managed doing it. So some crazy people out there. These guys, I know you can't see it in this picture, but one thing that we never expected is our customers keep track of their serial number. I've never seen it on the radio where they've done this. We did not have a strict number. They're sequential from 001 from the day they start. These guys all put their serial number in the frequency display for this picture. These are the German group over there and sent this to us. That was sort of cool. DXpeditions. This was the first one. These guys came to us right after we actually first started shipping the radio. And they said, hey, we want to do a DXpedition with it. And I was a little scared because we hadn't had these many radios out in that environment before for the K3. And they did the VP6DX DXpedition down the Dusky Island and Pitcairn and set a whole new world record for DXpeditions at that time. You can see the KF3s here. They had, I think, 7 of these on the air simultaneously, a bunch of them on the same band at the same time. So they actually could operate sideband and CW at the same time with no problem with our radios. And that's set a great reputation for us going forward. And you can see that transition to these guys. How many folks have worked these guys in the current DXpedition on there? Do you have any handspan ratings?
Yeah.
K1N.
Several of us have worked that one, yeah. Not many.
Yeah, that one's all K3s, all K, well, not all KP8500s, they have a mix. We have K3s, KP8500 amplifiers, P3 pad adapters, which actually is taking the DXpedition out. They can see where the pileup has a gap in it, and some guy has slipped into that hole to call them, they'll jump over there and work themselves. That way they can hear the guys. And so that's actually changed the way the DXpeditions operate. We've become the standard for DXpeditions, really pretty much all the major ones. If you look at our latest QST advertisement on the right side, I think we list them. Most of the major ones we've done recently. There's a lot of smaller ones out there too. They call us up. We don't hunt them down. They actually call us up and say, hey, we want to get your radios. So it's been a great deal for us. Here's the guys operating. This is W0 DJ, I think it is. This is P3 operating. You've got the amplifier, I think, on the next table over. This is actually inside that lighthouse that you saw from the previous picture here. They actually were going to put tents up next to it, but they found this worked out real well. They had dipoles hanging from in addition to their Yankees down below. And there they are inside. You can see all the K3s, the amplifiers, all operating here at night. And they could over 70,000, 80,000 QSOs as of this morning, and they're running for a record of 3 or 4 days. I finally had time to get out and work it this week, and I worked them on a couple of nodes on 10 and 20 meters, but they've been relentless. So these guys obviously like the radios. And what's neat about the DXpeditions is, well, we will loan them the DXpeditions, but I'd say in 95% of the cases, they end up buying from us afterwards. So it's a good thing for both of us. Here's just another typical station running. There's the amplifier running that's putting power out. That's obviously a CW station. He's got the right shirt on. So we did give him free t-shirts. So. And that's actually probably one of the guys working in the This picture was actually given to me by the same guy that had that airplane picture, so it makes me wonder sometimes. But, I don't know how fast his dog can stand, but it's straight to me too, but there it is. So that's it. I'm going to open it up for questions.
All right.
And by the way, that's on that tower. This is down in Monterey. This is the old Navy Army Mars station at Fort Ord Field that became a ham radio club that I was president of for a while. That's myself and K6XX up on top of this telephone pole that they had planted there with a bunch of these for the radio station, putting up a Yagi. We discovered something about standing waves when we were up there. The pole was going back and forth like this as we were up there.
So much fun.
I told Bob to get down before I climbed up the pole strut up at the top and got something off of it. That was some of the fun stuff we've done after.
Stan.
All right.
There you go. I think I beat the top of the hour. Can I answer some questions for you? Anybody got any doubts?
Sure, we got a couple queuing up right now.
Stan, what's involved in building the transceiver kit?
What's involved in building the transceiver kit?
Okay, I'll work backward. The current radios, the K3 and the KX3, are what you would call modular kits. The circuit board's already pre-assembled. And it's like more of a modular mechanical assembly and final alignment test. The alignment is mostly controlled by the radio. We build most of the test software into the microprocessor, so you punch it up in the front panel and run through some test routines, 0-beat WWB, but really it's more mechanical. We found with the surface mount parts we have to use, it's not as practical for a solder to get it here. Now the older radios, the K2, the K1 and KX1, those are the first ones I showed you, those are 100% soldered together kits that we only sell as kits, like the old beat kits. So if you want to get the full experience of building a 8-depth 160 through 10 meter all-mode transceiver or side-band CW transceiver, you might get the K2 if you want to solder all together. That takes about 40 to 50 hours of work. Whereas the K3 maybe takes 13 hours of final assembly test and everything, and it's all modular boards, no soldering. So it's a solderless kit, if you want to look at it that way. And that's true for the K3, the K500 amplifier, the pan adapter, all the circuit boards are already assembled. That's also true for the KX3. So any little black radios you see are all the circuit boards are pre-assembled.
So Eric, what's the difference in the price point between the kit and the already assembled one? The K3 for say.
In the case of the KX3, this radio here, it's about $100, $150, depending what options you put in it.
Okay.
If you're building a K3, you can see it in the wall behind you there. I think the kit versus build's about $250 more for the basic radio if you add to it. And then I think if you have some of the options and stuff may end up being about $350 or so, $400, depending if you have them us to them all here.
So what's the going
Actually,
price?
go to our webpage. We've got a price list there. You see the options, check the boxes if you want, and without submitting an order, you can see what it's going to cost you, or you can erase that and go back and do something different. But feel free to go there. We've got manuals you can download, the assembly manuals, the operating manuals, articles, reviews, you name it, pictures of the radios. You can pretty much get anything you want on there and find out about this stuff.
Eric, for the group, so let's say you got a fully loaded K3, KX3 or K3, the big radio. What's the outdoor price on that one then? If you just were to buy it fully assembled?
If you buy a K3 fully assembled and put everything you can put into it, you're probably going to be in the $3,500 range. They bought every single crystal filter you can get, but you can radio starch down low too. So if you load it up with crystal filters, we have 5 slots for the transceiver section, and then we have a sub-receiver that's exactly identical to the lead receiver. You can add 5 more. You don't have to do that. It comes with a standard sideband filter, and we have DSP filtering down to 50 hertz. Start with a good performance radio for the low too, so you can go crazy over time and adding stuff to it. But you actually end up with a radio that performs as well, actually better than most radios that cost you $10,000 out there right now.
Exactly. So about half the price of a Flex 6700 or something like that. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And the
okay.
Flex is a good radio, by the way. It's a different philosophy of whether you're full computer interface versus obviously a SDR with knobs like we go with.
Right.
In the case of the KX3, they mentioned that a fully loaded KX3, a little radio, it's maybe $1,300 for it. Put everything in and have us build it.
Cool.
Any other questions from the floor?
Yes, one in the back.
Yes.
Yeah, question, the PAN adapter, can you use that with any other radios, or is it specific to the K3's IF? And does the...
You can use it with other radios. The question was to use the PAN adapter with other radios. Yes, the PAN adapter can take an IF all the way up to, I think, about 20 megahertz. You want to make sure you have a wide band IF coming out the radio, not one that's been narrowed down. So not all radios put that out, but I know Yaesu radios and I think Kenwood radios
Right.
will put out their IFs. And we have a lot of people using P3 with those radios. It acts as a sort of passive PAN adapter when you use it with other radios, because obviously it's not talking to them like it does the King. You can point and click with the cursor and stuff. But you get the same sensitivity, all the spectral signal averaging, all the other features built in that all work, regardless of what you put into it. It'll just be a tracking PAN adapter that follows you around.
Okay.
Stan,
Yes.
can you hook a computer to it, and can the PAN adapter be put on a widescreen
That's a
television?
good question. They want to know if you can hook a computer to it. So if you've got a USB connection or something in there, you've got a monitor, can you put the PAN adapter up on a monitor screen on a computer then?
Well, 2 things. The P3 PAN adapter that we have an internal video card for it, so you get the monitor up directly. That's how I operate it at home. I have a larger monitor on top of the radio. But if you want to operate a PAN adapter on your computer, the way to do it, actually, they did it before we came out with the P3, is there's a company called Telepost that makes a box called the LP PAN. It takes our 8 megahertz IF output from the back of the radio. It mixes it down to baseband, so you can feed it into a broadband audio card on your computer. A basic audio card will give you about 40 kilohertz of spectrum. You can look on a free software PAN adapter program. If you're using a higher end audio card, you can get up to about 150, 190 kilohertz, I think, bandwidth, so not too bad. That's another way to go about it if you want. So Telepost, Telepost Inc. is the website. Look, he has a lot of neat stuff, but Larry has a nice down converter that'll do that for. I think it's pretty reasonable price.
Okay. Other questions?
Take
Yes, one in the back.
Yeah, I have a K3 7371. What features have you recently come out with or will be coming out with for the K3?
Well, I'll leave something out here that we make a lot of software changes. Actually, I'm going to turn the volume down here so I'll turn it back up after I answer. We made some software changes to it. We've improved noise reduction over the last couple of years. We've made a number of changes. Oh, one of the biggest changes is that we've made some changes in the software. It's a free software download for you that improves, if you're a CW operator, it improves and removes some small audio artifacts that we had in full break-in CW, a little quite funky. It wasn't that bad, we totally eliminated it. Made a big improvement in how the digital signal processor handled that. We're actually, now it just started shipping a couple of weeks ago, we actually have added or changed and synthesized the design to be even quieter than what we've got right now. We haven't announced this yet, so you're hearing it first, but it'll be announced the next day or so. But the plug-in synthesizers are upgradable radio you've got too. If you want to have green close-in sensitivities, it's like less than 10 kilohertz range, where you didn't want to have your phase noise mixing with signals off frequency. We have even quieter oscillators. We have the quietest ones in the ham radio market already, about maybe another 20 dB quieter. So we've improved those on the radio too. And then we've got some other stuff planned for it. I can't tell you now, but there's going to be new stuff coming out here for Anthony Adams going down the road.
Stan,
Yes,
take one more.
one more question. One more question before.
Okay, Paul, that's fine.
Hang on. Anybody else?
I don't see
I
any
think
other hands,
that's it.
actually.
I think that's it. Well, Eric, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it, and it was a great update on Elecraft, and I can see why you have a lot of evangelists out there that are proud owners of the Elecraft product. And again, I've worked field day with folks that own the K2s, that work CW, love them, really impressed with them, made lots of contacts on field day at other clubs I've been a member of, and so I've seen them in action, and they work extremely well. So it's certainly a greater insight, and when you're thinking about a radio, I'd certainly think about the Elecraft. And again, a lot of it has to do with how you take care of your customers, and the product you build is high quality. So I thank you for taking the time out tonight to be a part of our meeting here in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, and wish you the best, and we'll be in touch hopefully in the future, and I hope to hear you on the air. I know you got on this weekend, but maybe we'll get to work you on the air. That'll be great.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot. I enjoyed talking here. This is always an easy way for me to do it. And if I get a chance to get out to EA, Oshkosh again, maybe I'll drop by Fond du Lac.
Okay, let us know, and we'll have lunch with you or something, okay?
There you go.
Thank
And
you.
if you guys have questions, by the way, feel free to give us a call here. I got great support guys will answer all your questions if you're thinking of buying something or just want to get about it, get a feel for how it works.
All right.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
You got your number.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Eric. Okay.
And it even worked. This is impressed with the equipment here.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. Now we're done. Okay.